So my article that I critiqued was on exercise improving clinical symptoms, quality of life, global functioning, and depression and schizophrenia. It was a systematic review and a meta-analysis. So this came from the Oxford Academic Database at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, and it's titled Schizophrenia Bulletin. So again, the article was published and placed in the Journal of Psychosis and Related Disorders, so it's appropriate, I believe, for this article to be placed within that. It dives into various aspects of schizophrenia and related articles. Again, therefore, this seems to fit the description of what we want. So, critiquing the title, it reflects the abstract very well, although you could include the words aerobic and yoga specifically, not just general exercise, or specifically before the word exercise. It explains how general exercise can objectively affect the above subtopics in patients with schizophrenia or schizophrenia spectrum disorders. The purpose of this study was to identify an association between physical exercise and the ability to improve various cognitive functions on schizophrenic patients. The design lined up well with the title as well. Took 29 studies for a total of 1,109 patients. The results and conclusions were accurately described by the title, and these specific cognitive functions were objectively improved by exercise. Now, one of these specifically being yoga had the most potent effect on memory. So, based again on the Seals and Tannock article, looking at the abstract and the summary, it addressed in the background portion of the abstract, it addresses specifics in the background, but it was not just physical exercise, it was specifically aerobic and yoga. Did not investigate the delivery, intensity, frequency, and all of that of the exercise. Other than that, the abstract was clear and comprehensive of the main text. Content in the abstract is consistent with the main text. It could have incorporated more of the benefits of yoga from the conclusion, discussion, and otherwise comprehensive. More key information in the main text than in the abstract. The abstract was very general. Combined intervention programs were included with exercise, so it wasn't just exercise alone. So the title kind of gives you a general exercise is what it's looking at, but there was stuff included, which I'll discuss later. So the introduction. So the introduction describes what is known about the title, discusses what science seems to know about exercise and schizophrenic patients in numerous ways. I don't believe any previous important findings were omitted or misrepresented. Biological and clinical significance are displayed when comparing neurotransmitter stimulation and other cognitive reactions to exercise. Does discuss the significance of physical inactivity, increasing morbidity rates, which we already knew, and can have multiple effects on not only humans, but patients with basically cognitive specific schizophrenic disorders. The aim of this present study was to quantitatively review the effects of physical exercise on clinical symptoms in patients with any schizophrenia or any type of disorder, and secondarily, the impact of exercise on quality of life, global functioning, depression, and cognition. Previous experiments have proven the biological stimulations that occur at the neurological level when physical activity occurs, which we already knew, and the suggested hypothesis. In this research, looks at various types of exercise positively affecting schizophrenic patients in multiple activities of daily living. Previous studies on exercise benefiting the brain, as we know, exercise is great for us. But this looks specifically, the research previous to this didn't really look at the schizophrenic population. Sample size, patient population is 1,109 patients over 26 studies, and this was a systematic review of meta-analysis. It was appropriate. Okay, inclusion and exclusion criteria fit the subject. That's how they were adequately described, and based upon the title, it matched up as well. Again, we know the sample size and all that. Sample population will allow limited generalizability to those patients with any schizophrenic spectrum disorder. Randomization was not stated. IRB and informed consent was not stated, although this was literature search, so it wasn't an experiment itself. A systematic review was performed using all of these databases. Proper conditions were included in the criteria. Controlled and uncontrolled studies were included. I say some conflict here because in another part of the study it talks about uncontrolled studies were not included, so it conflicts itself. Systematic review and meta-analysis isolates the factor of interest, but still does not directly consider other confounding factors that could influence schizophrenic patients. Details on literature search were and adequate detail. Independent variables were exercise. Dependent variables were clinical symptoms, quality of life, low functioning, and depression, with confounding factors of schizophrenic spectrum disorder. Here are all the reliability and validity of the tests that they use to measure the schizophrenic patients. Controlled and uncontrolled studies, including the effect of any type of physical activity in these patients, were included. And again, combined programs of weight reduction and exercise or using additional cognitive training were included in order to obtain. So it was, again, it wasn't just exercise, even though the title makes it appear like that. Almost every outcome measure was assessed via the typical statistical analysis parameters. Unit of analysis of systematic review and meta-analysis was most appropriate. All symptom scales were used to assess the dependent variables, and the primary outcomes were broken down into aerobic and yoga. No anaerobic present research, which was interesting. No standard error. The heterogeneity was considered high. Again, you can just read that. It met what it was supposed to. Meta-analysis tables describe the positive, negative, and general symptoms, and then there was an overall table of all these listed here with the statistical analysis. So what's important, results showed an overall significant effect of exercise on clinical symptoms and medium effect sizes for negative and total symptoms, and small effect sizes on general and positive. Only yoga showed significance in improving general symptoms, while both yoga and aerobic exercise were effective in reducing the total symptoms and the rest of the symptoms. Both yoga and aerobic showed similar effect in improving quality of life. Exercise was beneficial in improving global functioning and depressive symptoms. Evidence is pointed more towards the effect of yoga in improving global functioning and reducing depression. Again, exercise generally good for you, improving cognitive subdomain and how fast we think. A positive effect of yoga on the cognitive of long-term memory, and a trend towards significance for attention and executive functioning. 5 previous studies conducted on functional outcomes related to positive or negative. 1 previous study shows that exercise was superior to drugs in reducing negative symptoms. The primary strength of this study showed how exercise is effective in promoting overall well-being in schizophrenic patients. This study showed that yoga was very effective as an intervention. This current study aimed to compare exercise with both active and passive types of controls, and showed that exercise had a great efficacy in improving various outcome measures. Limitations of the study: only 6 studies investigated cognitive effects from exercise, therefore it's not powerful. On the contrary, the cognitive studies that were not included in the meta-analysis showed positive effects from exercise. Insufficient amount of studies were conducted on anaerobic exercise only. Future recommendations: more in-depth methodologies, and these in detail right here. And this will increase the generalizability and make this information more robust to the population.